Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's service. We will begin this morning's service with the ringing of the kansho, followed by sutra chanting of Junirai. Following sutra chanting, we will then be led in the Eightfold Path by Mountain View's YABA. Following the reading of the Eightfold Path, we will then be listening to a Dharma Message by Minister's Assistant, John Arima. Thank you for coming to today's service, and please enjoy.
The Buddha Dharma is the realization within one's deepest consciousness of the oneness of all life. For the attainment of this purpose, the Buddha left us to follow the Eightfold Path, which is the way of prime importance.
Right view.
To keep ourselves free from prejudice, superstition, and delusion, and to see the true nature of life as it is.
Right thoughts.
To turn away from the evils of the world and direct our minds toward purity.
Right speech.
To refrain from pointless and harmful talk, and to speak kindly and courteously to all.
Right conduct.
To see that our deeds are peaceful, benevolent, compassionate, and pure. To live the teachings daily.
Right livelihood.
To earn our living in such a way as to entail no evil consequences.
Right effort.
To direct our efforts incessantly to the overcoming of ignorance and craving desires.
Right mindfulness.
To cherish good and pure thoughts, for all that we say and do arise from our thoughts.
Right meditation.
To concentrate our will on the Buddha, his life, and his teachings.
May the presence of the Buddha, who said that he would abide in the Dharma, be our guide. May we with earnestness, gratitude, and unfaltering steps tread upon this noble Eightfold Path until we too shall attain enlightenment.
Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida
Namo
Butsu.
Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo
Namo
Amida
Amida
Butsu.
Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo
Namo
Amida
Amida
Butsu.
Butsu.
Namandas.
Namandas. Namandas. Namandas.
Amida has passed through 10 kalpas now, since realizing Buddhahood. Dharma body's wheel of light is without bound, shining on the blind and ignorant of the world. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandav, 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 namandav. Hello, everyone. Thank you for viewing our online service for October 17th of 2021. Today's opening reading is one of the wasan, or hymns, written by Shinran Shonin, the founder of our Jodo Shinshu tradition. Shinran wrote his wasan to help make the teachings more understandable to more people. In Shinran's time, Buddhist monks were trained using texts that were written in Chinese. This made it hard for people not dedicated to only studying to understand Buddhism. Wasan are short 4-line verses that could be easily memorized for chanting, and most importantly, for this case, they were written in Japanese by Shinran. This meant people did not have to know or study Chinese to hear the teachings. They could hear the teachings in their own native language. An example of Shinran's wasan that we hear at our Mountain View services is after we chant Shoshinge, we'll chant Nembutsu, and in between that, we will chant 6 wasan. These wasan, if you remember from service, are the parts in the chanting where there's one wasan leader, or sometimes people call them the soloist for chanting the first line, and then all the rest of the sangha joins in for the remaining 3 lines. We'll see if you remember the opening reading when you hear it the way that we normally would do it in service. Mida jo butsu no kono kata wa ima ni jikou o heta maeri hoshin no kori. wa mo naku se no mo myo o terasu nari. So is that more familiar to you now? Actually, I hope so, because our Osaji group practices the Wasan very diligently to present to all of us at services. So hopefully the familiar sound of it is something that is the result of their dedication and hard work. Recently, we've had Dharma messages and some discussion sessions about the 3 Pure Land Sutras. At Ohigan, Reverend Koei Umezu, she gave a talk about part of the larger sutra on the Buddha of immeasurable life. And Reverend Mukujima recently gave a talk about part of the sutra of the contemplation on the Buddha of immeasurable life. And the discussion sessions that we had were utilizing some materials that were prepared by Reverend Kuwahara of the Berkeley Buddhist Temple that he gave in an online seminar called The Essence of the 3 Pure Land Sutras. And if you go to the Center for Buddhist Education's YouTube channel, you can find Reverend Kuwahara's seminar, which was very good, and which is why we used his material to explain some of the details of the 3 Pure Land Sutras. But the thing that's common between what these ministers were doing and the Wasans is that they were trying to explain things in ways that make it easier for us regular people to understand. This is the same thing that Shinran was doing when he wrote the Wasan. He wanted to help people who were not full-time scholars have a way to hear the teachings. It's thought that Shinran started writing and sharing his Wasan around the time when he was at the age of 75 years old. So imagine starting a whole new job when you're 75 years old. It's like he had finished writing and disseminating what's called his major work, which is the Kyogyo Shinsho. And you would think that he would just want to elaborate on that and maybe not dive into a whole new effort, but he did at the age of 75. And since he passed away around the age of 90, we know that in the last 15 years of his life, it's estimated that Shinran wrote over 500 Wasan. About 330 of these Wasan are used for chanting at daily early morning services, especially the early morning service at our mother temple, Honganji in Kyoto. And this practice of chanting Shoshinge and Wasans for services were part of Renyo Shonin's work to propagate Jodo Shinshu to more people. Renyu used woodblock printing to make copies of Shoshinge and the Wasan so they could be used like service books at Jodo Shinshu gatherings early on. And as I said, they were in Japanese, so people could easily, well, the ones that were literate could read them and then help everyone else who were at those Jodo Shinshu gatherings. And because it's a melodic type of phrasing and sound to the chanting, it lends itself towards memorization. So just like the recent Dharma messages that Reverend Umezu and Reverend Mukujima and the discussion sessions we had that used Reverend Kuwahara's materials, Shinran and Renyo, they really wanted to make sure that people who were not full-time scholars would have a way to hear the teaching. So let me explain a little bit about the Wasans, the Shinran's Wasans. They're organized into 3 sets. The first set of Wasan are called the Hymns of the Pure Land, or Jodo Wasan. And those are about Amida Buddha, his Pure Land, and the 3 Pure Land Sutras. These wasan explain that Amida provides a path to end suffering. We need guidance, why we need guidance to follow that path, and how to achieve an end to suffering. So those Jodo wasan all encompass those parts of the teachings. The wasan I read at the beginning of this Dharma message is part of this first set of wasan. The second set of wasan are called the hymns of the Pure Land Masters. And those are about the Dharma teachers that connect Shinran's understanding of Buddhism directly to Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha. These wasans explain the specific teachings that connect Jodo Shinshu to the Dharma messages or sutras that are attributed directly to Shakyamuni Buddha. These Dharma teachers that are honored, and the verses are written about by Shinran. These are the 7 masters of Jodo Shinshu. And when you're in our Hondo, if you look up at the Onaijin on the far left side, that scroll has those 7 masters. Following, and some of these wasan are not all strictly about the Dharma in terms of ending suffering. Some of them are informational about the particular master. So this following wasan is about Honen Shonin, who was Shinran's direct Dharma teacher. And in this passage, Honen is referred to as Genku. As our teacher Genku appeared in the world and spread the one vehicle of the universal vow throughout the entire country of Japan, favorable conditions for the Pure Land teaching emerged. So, like I said, these sets of Pure Land masters, wasans, or hymns, really, they explain what each master did historically, and they also explain what that master taught and how it connects link by link between Shinran and Shakyamuni Buddha. The third set of wasan are called the hymns of the Dharma ages, and not surprisingly enough, they're about the Dharma ages. So these wasan explain what the Dharma ages are and how understanding the Dharma ages, and especially the current age that we are in, which is referred to sometimes as the age of defilement, or in Japanese it's referred to as mappo. These wasans help explain why the primal vow is the path to end suffering. So an example would be from this third set of wasan, called the Shozomatsu wasan as a set. This wasan talks about the primal vow and its importance and power. Persons who truly realize Shinjin, which is directed to them through Amida's vow of wisdom, receive the benefit of being grasped, never to be abandoned. Hence they attain the stage equal to perfect enlightenment. So this is, just, obviously one brief wasan, but it talks about how Amida's vow of wisdom, or primal vow, when people realize Shinjin, that means the primal vow is Amida's promise that they will be born into the Pure Land and attain freedom from suffering. So, kind of as a whole set, all the wasans together, they're the major teachings that each of these are presenting to us. And, Shinran actually wrote more wasans. I've mentioned that 330 are standardly used for services, and there's another 100 70 or so. They touch on topics such as they're praising Prince Shotoku Taishi, who was in the Japanese royalty and helped bring Buddhism to Japan. Some of the wasans talk about the offense of doubting the primal vow. And there's a set of wasan that I really have come to appreciate deeply. And the topic that Shinran wrote about in these wasans were his really deep and profound awareness of his limitations as a human being. And I think they touch me in a way that it always helps me remember that I have infinite limitations, and I'm only human and always subject to my dark sides to take over my mind and direct my actions. So an example of one of these is this following wasan. With minds full of malice and cunning, like snakes and scorpions, we cannot accomplish good acts through self-power. And unless we entrust ourselves to Amida's directing of virtue, we will end without knowing shame or self-reproach. Amanda. So the meaning of this passage is that, as much as we want to believe that what we do, the good deeds and the good acts we take of our own volition are the evidence of our good nature and our the things that show that we deserve to be freed from our suffering. It's really not the right thing, because unless we entrust in Amida's primal vow, we will never really fully understand and appreciate our own human limitations, and we'll never know the shame that we should feel about ourselves, and we'll never know how, this may be a little bit heavy-handed, but how you should really look at yourself as being imperfect, or you should almost loathe your imperfection, your imperfect self, and just realize that that's really who you are and who I am. The two most important things I want to emphasize about the wasan. The first is that they were created to help non-scholarly people, or ordinary people, who had to go about making a living for their families and their communities. They needed to have a way to hear the Dharma. So the first thing is that these were created to help spread the teachings. And if Shinran hadn't wrote them and Renyo hadn't used them to spread the teachings through his efforts with all the Jodo Shinshu gatherings that were organized and that he supplied this information to, the woodblock prints of the Shoshinge and the wasans for Jodo Shinshu followers to follow and to read and to chant. And this right behind me, in my virtual background behind me, this wouldn't exist if it wasn't for these things. The second important thing about the wasans is that each wasan, each 4-line verse, is a small piece of the whole story of Jodo Shinshu. And I think all of us who have studied a little bit, we kind of run across some of them that we really connect with and really resonate with us in one way or another. But you really need to take another step back and start to connect them to see, not try to read all 500 of them, but at least parts of them, because they are organized in a way that, they're grouped together by topic. And as you start to read through and connect the different sections. They'll help you to understand and focus on the most important factor, which is the compassion of Amida's primal vow and how it is the path to save ignorant people like myself and like all of us. So in closing today, I will repeat the wasan that I read at the beginning of the talk. This particular wasan, which I hadn't explained at the front, I'll explain now, tells us that Amida's compassion fills the entire world. And it's like a light that shines on all of us ignorant beings to help us see things as they really are, to help us find the reality. And that's one of the things that we strive towards in our path to end suffering. So please join me in kansho. Amida has passed through 10 kalpas now. Since realizing Buddhahood, Dharma body's wheel of light is without bound, shining on the blind and ignorant of the world. Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Namanda, 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 Namanda. Thank you everyone for your attention today. Please, as always, stay healthy and stay safe.
Thank you to the YABA for reading the Eightfold Path, and thank you, Mr. Arima, for your wonderful Dharma talk today. Please stay tuned after the service, as there will be a presentation of Kimochi sponsored by the YABA. Thank you, everyone, and please stay tuned.